Hello, Pardreamin. For those of us, excuse me, it's been a long week. For those of you joining us for the first time today, welcome. We're so excited for you to be joining in on Pardreamin. My name is Kate Godley, and I work with Sercante. I'm here to introduce you to Eric Mall while he discusses opportunities in Salesforce and why you may be doing it wrong. Welcome, Eric.
Hey, thank you so much, Kate, and welcome everyone. Par Dreaming is the second time I'm doing Par Dreaming. It's a really exciting time to be here. It looks like everyone's been having a really good time in the other presentations. I know we're towards the finish line of Par Dreaming now, so we'll try to have some fun with this presentation. For those that are aware, my name's Eric. The last year we did leads in Salesforce and why you may be doing it wrong. So this kind of became a series since everybody enjoyed it, and we did opportunities in Salesforce and why you may be doing it wrong. So just really quick, going through a quick discussion as we were talking about it. My name's Eric. I've recently stumbled upon parenting, and I have a 16-month-old daughter, a very jealous dog, and a lot of overdue chores, as you can see it while I'm trying to do some work. I have been Salesforcing away since about 2010, doing independent consulting since 2013. I've managed to acquire a couple of certifications during that time, and done tons of implementations, not only on Salesforce. I've done a couple of Pardot implementations, lots of community cloud. I've been around the block a couple of times. I'm putting QR codes because I think it's easier nowadays if everyone just put their phone to the link. There will be goodies. You will actually have some goodies that you can cash in on towards the end of this presentation if you stick around. We'll go from it. But this link will take it to LinkedIn, where I've started a project called Ohanali. You can find out more about it, where we're looking to build a network of freelancers and independent consultants, not in the entire Salesforce ecosystem, including Pardot, and we want to build some Pardot representation as well. This is a quick screenshot of last time around during the leads presentation. So if any of you are joining in, because of last year's presentation, welcome back. So quickly jumping in and talking about it. This is a very simple presentation. There are not a lot of slides into it. We are going to go over hopefully some entertaining stories of what are not opportunities. I did run a survey in LinkedIn a couple of weeks back, and I feel like we almost broke the internet with all the discussion. We did put the survey, I believe Kate set up the survey, and we do have the survey for you to fill in. It's the same one that everyone else filled out. I'll share the results. I'm curious to see what you think before we start. So make sure to put some comments in there, put some questions, fill in your polls. I want this to be as interactive as possible and try to have some time left over for us to have some conversations before we wrap it up, and you guys can go check out the awesome keynote that follows. So we'll do some opportunity review. We're going to talk a little bit about what opportunities actually are and how to best use them. We'll talk about some best practices on field mappings. This is all going to tie in with regards to Pardot. You are going to, by the time you're done here, you're going to learn how to accurately track your opportunities, not only in Salesforce, but in Pardot. Hopefully we can learn from some of the others' mistakes that I've encountered throughout my years in consulting. And we're going to talk about MQLs and SQLs and how all of that plays an important role, not only in Salesforce, but in Pardot. And like I mentioned, if you have your phones ready and you can get the QR codes, you'll be able to get the unmanaged packages that will make your life super, super sweet. So, Kate, if we can bring the presentation down. Basically, I want to talk to you guys. I want to share one of the first stories about opportunities. And this was a company at the time that was struggling with their Salesforce implementation. They had Pardot, and their technical team or their executive team couldn't really come together and agree on how to properly use opportunities. And one of the interesting things was that they were creating opportunities as placeholders for companies that they wanted to engage. They were like, look, here are some of the companies in the Fortune 500 that we want to reach out, and we want to be able to we want to be able to track all of our activities with them. And what they were doing is that they were creating all of these opportunities. This was before I found out because once they reached out to me, they were basically saying, listen, one of our problems is that our reporting sucks. As soon as I saw that, I was like, but oh my God, you have all of these opportunities. Like your opportunity pipeline is ridiculous. Your close rates are completely out of this world. You have opportunities that are open for 3-4 years because you never got your foot in the door, right? People were just creating opportunities for the sake of basically just not forgetting that these were the opportunities that they wanted to follow up with. And this was creating so much confusion and chaos because they were not understanding why their sales cycle were years long on their average sales cycle. They couldn't do any reporting on that. Their pipelines were inflated because people were saying, yeah, if we lock in this deal that we never spoke with this company, it would be worth $5 million, and they would put the $5 million in the opportunity amount, and everything would just inflate your pipeline if you're trying to run those opportunities. And they were just really having a hard time and struggling. So it was really, really interesting because it took us a while before we got them into understanding a process to say, listen, an opportunity is not a placeholder for you to say, just because I want to do business with them, right? They meet the criteria. They're someone we want to do business with. That's more of a marketing qualified lead, which is perfectly fine, but there's a place to track all of that information. You don't necessarily have a sales qualified lead yet because they haven't shown interest in it. And so that was one of the interesting stories. And it took us a little while to go through it, but it was a very polarizing subject because one of the things that we had to figure out was, when should you create an opportunity? There was a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion, and that was what the survey was about. Is if you want to be able to track companies you want to address, then what do you do? And the survey, and I'm curious to see what the results will be. But the survey that we ran on LinkedIn, we had 160 people on my network that vote on my LinkedIn network that voted, and I think we had about 160 comments too because it generated a lot of conversation. But 84% of the people that voted in basically stated that no, you should never create an opportunity for someone who has not yet shown interest in what your services are. So it was really, really interesting one, and kind of lead me to my second story for a second here, which is a lot of companies that were basically there was another company that we got involved in, and we were trying to work with. And one of the big challenges that they had was that, again, the reporting and opportunities was all coming in, irrelevant, let's just say. They just couldn't trust their data, which is something that happens commonly. And one of the big things that we were looking at was that this was a company that offered a lot of different packages to prospects. Prospects could literally pick and choose different packages, and it was very common that they would offer five or six different options and packages in what could be done. And the way this company was managing that in Salesforce, or sales and account executives were managing this in Salesforce, was that they were creating different opportunities for these packages. But the reality of it is, if they had a $10,000 opportunity, they were creating 5 opportunities of 10, 12,000 here, 8,000 there, 10,000 there. So the pipeline looked like it was $50,000 because you had all of these opportunities, and then they would close all of the other ones that didn't go through. So it was something that was that was really interesting. We had to work a lot with them to say, listen, there are functionalities and opportunities like quotes, and we won't have time today to talk about quotes, but the fact is that an opportunity is one opportunity that you should be tracking. So we'll talk a little bit now about opportunities. And before we go, I'll share back my screen so that way we can go in. And funny enough, I don't have a way to present the results, but it was very close. Out of everyone that voted here, 80.4%, so 80% rounding down, said no, just like the survey did, and 17% said yes. So I'm not sure how. Oh no, 19.6%. Sorry, so 20% said yes. So you can see the numbers are very close, and there is some conversation on that. But if you look at it, and coming back to the slides, anyone that saw last year's presentation is very familiar with this slide. Talking a little bit about last year's presentation, we're talking about leads and marketing qualified leads. The definition of a marketing qualified lead in a very simple format is basically saying, do I know, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years from now, that I want to do business with this company? From the second that I know I want to do business with them, right? Short of me changing what my business offering is entirely, this person is qualified because they're in the right industry, they're in the right region, they have the right they're the right company size, whatever the case may be. I want to do business with them. I know that now, so whether they're interested tomorrow, 10 years from now, we're ready. And that's your marketing qualified lead. If we're talking about Pardot, that's really where your Pardot grade comes in, because that's information that you can try to find either by publicly available data or paid databases to try to gather information and grade your Pardot prospects and your both in Salesforce and Pardot to be able to understand, hey, we want to do something with them. But the idea of a sales qualified lead, right, should only be when they have shown interest back in you. And it's a really interesting conversation, and maybe you can lead on to different presentations in the future. But in almost every single use case that I've come across, you should not have an opportunity before you have some sort of interest or active conversation going on with them. It's just something that it's a really big challenge that companies come across because they have a lot of issues with reporting. And if we're talking about a sales qualified lead and tracking your opportunities, one of the biggest challenges that you have in the database, if you look at it on here, is that in Salesforce under where you have a lead that becomes an account where type equals prospect, and then you have an opportunity, and the whole time in Pardot you're talking about a prospect. And one of the big challenges with that is that both databases, Pardot and Salesforce, were fundamentally built differently, because one is looking at a contact versus the other that is looking at a company at the account level. So everyone here, or I would assume most here, would know that some of the big challenges that you have are basically being able to tie, right, these opportunities that are naturally tied to accounts. How do you tie them to Pardot? And the answer, for those who know, is contact rules. In Salesforce, you have the contact rules related list, which is probably by far one of the least utilized functionalities in Salesforce. And you almost can't fault the salespeople, because one, salespeople have a really hard time with adoption. Two, it doesn't make a difference for them from their end. So why are they going to do it? And three, not only to fault user adoption and some of the end users, but a lot of times executives have a hard time explaining the value of contact rules and why that should be there. And even if they could, and the salesperson agrees that they should use contact rules, one of the big challenges with what happens is that there's no requirement to it, and it's out of the box. You can't just write a validation rule to say, hey, make contact rules required, because it's a related object. It's outside of the opportunities. And if everyone's interested, or if everyone's curious, right, by this point, we're talking about making sure that we have opportunities at the right time, right? Not tracking opportunities that don't exist and put them in as placeholders. We talked about not duplicating your opportunities because there's multiple items. And now we're talking about contact roles. And why that's important from a Pardot perspective is because of items like your lifecycle report. You want to be able to accurately track your pipeline, right? You have items like your life cycle here, and be able to properly track, right, how much sales qualified. And you can even see Nothing that I'm saying. I can't take credit for this, guys. I have not invented MQL, SQL. This is not something that I'm just going with the flow here. But you can see that the sales qualified lead are all the opportunities that you've generated, right? You see here, new opportunities, sales qualified leads, and you can track that accurately by on your lifecycle reports by being able to have your contact roles. So it may not come as something new to say, hey, track your contact roles, but how do we do that? Now, you see the QR code, you see the link at the bottom. One of the big things that we've done to be able to help some customers, and we offer it to everyone here at Par Dreaming today, is an unmanaged package that essentially constitutes of a flow and some validation rules for that essentially has a count of contact roles at the opportunity level. So as you add in contact roles, it starts adding in. There's a breakdown. If you follow the link, if you use your phone to take a photo of the screen that you're watching this in, you can follow along. But the idea, the goal behind what we're doing with this is to be able to offer you a good ability to not require right away, but require it at a certain point. And because it's an unmanaged package, you have the ability to just make simple tweaks to the validation rule. And right now, it's based on the probability. So you can, I think the default value is 10%. So in the opportunity, many of you may be aware that you have the opportunity stages, and every opportunity stage has a probability. All we did was that we put a rule to say, hey, if this opportunity is not brand new, we're not going to create an error. If it's brand new, we'll give you the ability to play around with it before forcing you to edit. And once you go past a certain stage, great, we understand you're moving along. By this time, we need at least one contact in there to establish that relationship and connect once and for all your opportunity to the Pardot database. That way you guys can all benefit, right? Whether it's just something that someone innocently forgot and they're just getting a reminder right then and there, or if it's something that they generally just don't want to do, and we're saying, hey, this is for the greater good here, we all got to get in line with this, while not being terribly intrusive, right? Not saying like, hey, from the get-go, you cannot create an opportunity without a contact role and so forth. So there are some instructions. It's a blog post, and in there you'll find the links to install it both in production and in Sandbox, along with the YouTube video walkthrough of setting it up. The video, I think, is less than 5 minutes long. So hopefully you guys enjoy that, and hopefully you guys can make some good benefit on it. But coming back to it and talking about some of the different concepts here, right? I'm going to talk. We talked about opportunities in the beginning, right? And what's not opportunities and when it shouldn't be an opportunity. But one of the things that it was really interesting, and this leads me to my final story, is the last when should opportunities be closed? And it sounds almost obvious, but it's not always the case. And one of the big things that one of the funny stories that I came across during my time in consulting was an organization that was tracking their opportunities. And once the opportunity was what we all consider closed, one, they got the customer. The opportunity wasn't done there, and they had a variety of stages. And I can't share a screenshot of this. I should almost create it in a dev org just to share. But they had multiple stages, like close one, like I'm just gonna say close one step one, close one step two, close one step three. And I'm not talking about this is like, oh, this is just some paperwork steps that we have to do to make sure we finalized everything. This is like customers that are active customers and have been with them for 5+ years, and they are still managing all of their information in the opportunity. And this was really interesting because it started creating a lot of issues from a Pardot perspective. Yes, that you get your, if you get your contact roles in, you get everything in, and it shows on the report to some extent. But the problem is, if you want to upsell, if you want to sell something else to them, they were managing it all under the same opportunity and not creating a new one. So their pipeline was looking off by time periods, because if they sold something today to that customer from 5 years ago, the close date was either 5 years ago, so the opportunity amount from an opportunity 5 years ago was going up, and that's messing up all of your numbers back there, or they were just updating the close date to today, and then suddenly, like a $50,000 upsell on $1 million project would just be $1,050,000 all out of the sudden. But the reality of it was just it's a $50,000 upsell, and that was as simple as that. But a lot of people tend to want to continue to use opportunities because it's simpler, it stays all on the same tab, everything's there. So there are a lot of interesting practices out there that we can talk about it in a different presentation. But the bottom line is that if you're once you have a contract signed, right, your job in the opportunity is done, right? Anything else that comes after that, right, is a new opportunity. At the same time, that if an opportunity is closed lost, if even if they say, hey, we don't have the budget for it right now, like our budget got cut, like we'll circle back around in the new fiscal year, which is 3 months away. Okay, great. That's a closed lost opportunity. That should not be considered an ongoing opportunity still, because the opportunity age counter keeps counting, and it affects your reports on how long it takes you to close, because in reality is that there's nothing to do for that opportunity for 3 months. So you close it, you put a closed reason saying, hey, no budget or whatever the case may be, and you can create a new opportunity for now 3 months ahead to be able to better track your opportunity, understand your average values way better, understand your ages way better, and be able to tie back to Pardot and understand what is really making a difference with regards to your prospect score, which is all based on the types of activities that they're doing, and give you a better visibility that way. So that is basically the overview with the time that we have. I wanted to leave some time up for questions and answers. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really have a lot of fun at Part Dreaming. I think they do an awesome job here. But all said and done, thank you to everyone. Thank you to our sponsors, and then we can, Kate, I think I'll pass it back to you to try to go over some questions here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eric. That was an amazing session. A lot of the comments here are talking about how helpful this session has been, how gratifying it is to hear this information and kind of confirm that the way you are talking about opportunities is in line with the way people have been thinking they need to manage their opportunities overall. I do have a question here from Brian McFarlane, who asks, how do you convince an organization to use contact roles if they are reluctant?
Yeah, I think so. One, it depends on the audience, right? I think the if you're talking to an executive, is that the easiest argument is, you really have to know where your money's going, and where your opportunities are going well. So if you're not talking about Pardot, just the ability to understand who are you talking to. Are we talking often to decision makers versus just the random, like people that are not adding value to it? Can we track those items? That, if you can start running reports on it and see close ratios by how often decision makers have been engaged, that's a big plus. From a Pardot perspective, once you have the contact roles, one, you have the benefit of syncing everything. So if you're the CEO, just think about your marketing person not busting your boss for not having numbers from the sales side. But for one, you're connecting the databases there, and then two, you're enabling the marketing team to have a better idea of what's working or not working for them, to be able to adjust their marketing activities accordingly. So from an executive side, that's the big piece. From an end user side, it's tough to be able to sell them, because it may not influence them directly. The big piece here is that you have to be able to understand, like at most you have to say, look, this is something you're doing for the team. We're trying to make this unintrusive. The unmanaged package that we include there in the QR code will hopefully make it as easy as possible for them to transition. But the long-term view of it is that if the company can really apply themselves to understanding what's working versus not working by the use of contact roles, then you could technically even gauge the success rate. And a very simple thing that I'll just put here, kind of like put that seed in everybody's head, is that you could very easily just do an Einstein prediction builder, which you get one free in Salesforce on the opportunity, and try to make predictions based on the number of contact roles involved, which is the field in our unmanaged package. And then Salesforce will start calculating all of your closed ones and closed loss, and be able to give them descriptions saying, hey, your opportunity may increase in possibility of closure if you add someone, if the contact roles goes from 0 to 1 or from 1 to 2, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation that we've had a lot in the background at Circonte is how do you convince salespeople to do things that are going to help the marketing team? And I think the general consensus has always been try and find a way to prove that it is going to help their sales dollars in the long run. But
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is, go
I'll
on.
add one piece to that. I think there's a book called The Challenger Customer, and they talk a lot about, this is a very sales tacticy, but it can apply on the consulting side as well. Is that ultimately getting sales users to use contact roles, you need someone from within to be that stakeholder, right? A consultant's
Yep.
only there for the length of a project. So the second, if anyone here is listening as a consultant, the second you're done with your project, you're going away. So just because you told a salesperson that's what they need to do, they're not going to stick around unless there is a key champion, right? And this won't be a CEO, because the CEO is not going to be looking at whether you add a contact role or not. It has to be someone that takes ownership of the Salesforce org and environment, and is constantly reviewing and promoting best practices in the database.
Yep. All right,
Yeah.
so that concludes our session for today. Thank you all again for joining us, and a special shout out to our sponsors. We really thank them for their support. Without them, Pardreamin would not be possible. I know we're at the tail end of Pardreamin already, but if you haven't had a chance to, go ahead and stop by those sponsor booths. Make sure you understand what they do, show them some love, and get some points to win some cool prizes. I hope you all
Yeah.
have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at the keynote in a couple
Yeah.
minutes.
Go check out that keynote, guys. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.